Well, we've all seen some pretty funny serves in our lives, and it's no wonder. The serve is the most misunderstood stroke in tennis. Hi, I'm Vic Braden. Our goal is to help you achieve a good-looking and efficient serve. We're going to cover the role of every link in your body. When you use each part of your body properly, you are utilizing the kinetic chain. We'll spend a lot of time on your feet, but let's look at link 1. That's from the foot to the knee. Link number 1. Second link is from the knee to the hip. Link number 2. These are important links. 3 from the hip to the shoulder. Now normally your head is the 4th link. We don't count it as a link. We want it to be very still, very quiet. Link 4 we call the upper arm. That's from the elbow up to the shoulder. Link 5 is the forearm and 6 is the hand. A quick review. 1, link 2, link 3, the head is still, we don't count it as a link. Link 4, forearm is 5, and the hand is 6. And we're going to break down the serve in a way that you may never have seen before. We'll shoot from the bottom up. You'll see some wonderful angles. And we'll shoot from the top down. You'll get a new look. And we'll show you how to use an old pair of socks and your roller blades. I think we can show you that everyone can hit a fast and efficient serve. Let's start with the one that creates wars. Should you throw a high toss or a low toss? Now I want you to play devil's advocate on this one. How high should you toss the ball? Should you throw it way up in the air? Will you have more time? Or will you have more time if you only throw the ball this high, 17 to 20 inches out of your outstretched hand? Think about it. Many years ago, my staff and I spent a lot of time looking at gravity. How did it affect the ball toss? And we got up on a ladder, dropped the ball from a 6-foot height. This is coming down from just 6 feet. And you'll see that it's 2.5 of a second in the frame. Now you go the other way. Throw the ball only to the apex and see how much longer the ball sits in the strings. Now watch the clock. It's way past 2.5 Watch at the top how long the ball seems to be sitting there. And this is where Roscoe Tanner hits the ball. I wrote an article once about Roscoe Tanner's serve. He was clocked by us at 134 miles per hour. He hits the ball at the apex. He has more room for air because the ball sits in the window of the racket much longer, as you can see by the clock. But so many people see an optical illusion. It looks like Roscoe's hitting the ball on the way to the sky. But watch Roscoe. It's true that Roscoe is going after the ball as it's rising, but he won't hit it until the apex. Now watch the circle, and you'll see the ball get in there just as it did on the clock. And there'll be very little movement at the top. This gives Roscoe so much more time to strike the ball than players who throw the ball 6 feet above the racket. Now when people see this, they sometimes say, Vic, you've rigged this. The ball's on a string. It's not. This is the advantage of striking the ball at the apex. Notice that position will only be 17 to 20 inches out of his outstretched hand. And now watch the pronation. You see the arm turn inside out there? We're going to talk an awful lot about the pronating forearm. Let's let it run all the way through this time. Here's Roscoe. Watch him. Arms are trying to rise simultaneously. The racket is accelerating, picking up speed now. You don't want to pause anywhere. Never stop. According to Howard Brody, Newton's second law. And I want you to see Roscoe in a stick figure. This is Roscoe's actual body. We clocked him at 134 miles per hour with a composite racket. Not all the newest graphites. That is one hard hit. Now watch. I'll show you a vector coming out of his hand. He's not hitting down. He's hitting forward with his hand. Where did we get 17 to 20 inches? Well, if you see the bottom of the ruler, that's the tip of the grip. And that's where your outstretched hand usually can reach. Now you'll see up to the sweet spot, the place where you want to really hit the serve, is at about the 17-inch mark. Now we say 17 to 20 in case you get up on your toes to hit the ball. But anyway, it's a very, very low toss. So when you're out there on the court, you don't want to be looking up in the sky because there's nothing up there. You're only going to hit at the 17-inch mark. Yeah, well, you can spot a lot of airplanes, but that's not going to do you any good. Look at the blue circle. That's where you want to be looking. So if you look at the blue circle, you'll see that you're throwing the ball much further out in front of you. Your head is very balanced. You don't have to have that severe back arch, that severe layback with your head. Also, you're going to be moving way into the ball. That'll get you so much further into the net on your first volley. Did you know the trophy was designed by a D player with a pitiful serve? Well, what is the trophy look? The designer of the original trophy placed the throwing hand here and the hitting arm way back. The hitting arm trailed the throwing arm and you had this particular look. But if you throw a low toss and you use this movement, the ball will be way down in here and it won't work because this racket has too far to go before it impacts the ball. So when you have the trophy look, you are forced to throw a real high toss in order to give the racket enough time to come around and strike the ball. Avoid the trophy look. I think you'll see it quite clearly in this demo. Now, if I go with my trophy look hand, I'm not going to have enough time. If I throw it 17 to 20 inches, and this is a comment I get from a lot of viewers. They say, look, I tried what you said, but they have this trophy look. But you see, the throwing hand is up too early. And then you're going to have to throw the ball way up in here, much higher than 17 to 20 inches. Then you're going to have to hit it on the down flight. So don't lead with that hand. Don't look like the trophy. You see, when both hands go up together, now you have plenty of time to bring that racket head around. And if you watch, a very low toss, but I don't have to rush it at all. I hit the ball with all kinds of time. The swing is a simple and smooth movement. Let's take a look at the complete swing. I'm going to go through the service swing very quickly. Then we'll come back later and take each component and show you many, many ways to achieve a particular purpose. Now watch carefully. The first thing you do is to coil your body. That's important because your body is so powerful. Next point, the racket is going to go to this point and then come back over your head as though you could look in a mirror. So this is the first motion. Now notice this motion has 180 degrees of swing. 180. Now we're going to come back later and talk about if the palm goes up, you're in deep trouble. But right now, watch. My palm is down. That will allow me to go 180 degrees. Then my elbow takes over and completes a circle. So now I've got 360 degrees, and it looks like this. Now your elbow looks really weird. It's out in this position, and your racket is straight up, and it's got to turn in this manner and go out. Now that's a difficult motion to make for some people, but once we break it down and show you some ways to achieve this, you're going to have some new skills. It's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to nail that baby. Now let's take a look at some former champions. Put my theories to the test. This is Chris Evert when she was the best in the world. The first motion is the little hand wiggle. Now the racket's coming back so she could look up in the mirror. Now let's see if she scratches her back. I think you'll see when the elbow starts coming around that it throws the racket away from her body. It's very clear. Now there's that fourth link coming around, the elbow going towards the target. Now the racket's sitting on its edge like a knife. Now the forearm pronates, goes off to the right side first, and then down to the left side. Right on the money. Now we want to take a look at Chris if she were a left-hander. Left-handers always get angry at me because I don't show enough of left-handers hitting the ball, and they always have to make a visual reversal. Again, the racket is going away from the body, so there's no such thing as scratching your back. The elbow goes forward, that's the fourth link, the racket's on its edge. Now you'll have to pronate. The racket will turn in the opposite direction and then come down the other side. I want you to watch VJ arbitrage because I was told by someone once that his fourth link did not do what I said. Let's take a look. First, the hand wiggle. He looks in the mirror. Now, so many people said he scratched his back. Take a look. There is no back scratch. Now watch the fourth link. It looks weird. It looks funny. The fourth link goes way out like this. Now watch his left arm. It crosses in front while his upper body abruptly stops. And that causes his racket to travel 1.7 times faster. And so now one of our top players, Keith, will now practice with his hand movement without a racket. Palm is down, the elbow goes forward to keep the hand moving, and then the pronation. This is an important drill because you can do it without the racket. You won't have all the forces. You won't have so many things to worry about. Palm down, elbow forward, pronate. All right, watch Butch Young, head coach of the Vic Braden tennis camp. He's going to demonstrate palm down movement. Watch, the eyes on the ball look right into Butch. If he keeps the palm down, this brings the racket back to where you could look in the mirror. That's a very important movement. Palm down. But if the palm goes up, you can't make this movement. The wrist locks, and then you're in deep trouble. You've got to put the palm down. But most people have this problem, the palm looking to the sky, and then you're in trouble. Why are you in trouble? Because now you can only push the racket forward. You don't have 360 degrees of circular movement. So that's where people get the thing, the push serve. They have no power. David's hitting the ball very hard, 84, 85 miles per hour. But watch, he could hit it harder, but the palm goes up right here, and that limits the power. When the palm is down and the elbow goes forward, you get 360 degrees of rotation. Now what Angie's doing is making sure that the palm is down, she can look in the mirror, and then she takes her elbow and pushes it forward. This is a critical movement. The racket looks weird here, folks, but this is the way it has to be. Around the world, I hear people say, scratch your back on the serve. But you don't want to scratch your back. You want to scratch a friend's back. All right, Mitch, come on in. We'll show them how we do this now. Mitch is standing there. I'm showing you that I'm not going to scratch my back, that when I turn like this, I'm scratching Mitch's back. I hope you see that clearly. Don't scratch your back, scratch a friend's back. Well, do the great players really scratch a friend's back? Let's take a look. Here's Arthur Ashe. He's coiling his body. Notice that his hitting hand is down. The palm is down. The racket comes back, but because he's turning, the racket goes away from his back. He does not scratch his back. Now he's getting ready to scratch a friend's back. That's Arthur Ashe. A former great, Vijay Amritraj from India. Let's see if he scratches his back or does he scratch a friend's back. Well, you'll see he looks in the mirror. The racket goes away from his body. He does not scratch his back. It's way out there. But guess what? He scratches a friend's back. Remember this movement. It is critical. Here's a super drill by Angie. Take the non-hitting hand and pull the hitting elbow forward. You'll get the right effect. You need a loose forearm, and one way to tell if you've got one is to put a ball in the elbow. Coach Butch Young will put a ball in the elbow. This is a great drill because if you make the fourth link go forward the way it should go, the ball will fall out of the front. See, after you've gone forward. But if you would straighten that arm out, the ball would fall behind you. So again, put a ball in the elbow. Take the fourth and fifth link, squeeze the ball, take another ball in your hand, put the palm down, uncoil your body, make the fourth link go forward, and the ball will fall forward. It'll fly out of your arm towards the net. David could certainly use this drill. Watch, he hits the ball hard, but you'll see when he gets back, the forearm does not go limp. The forearm tightens, so he never gets a bend. If he would put a ball right in that elbow pocket, you would see it would fall out right at this point. He's got to let the forearm come down in a more loose manner so that he'll have something to snap forward. He's very powerful. You'll see that he pronates, the racket turns inside out. Now let's take a look at Gail. She comes straight up, so she loses a little power here, but right at this point her palm goes up. And you'll see the racket's facing to the sky, and there's only about a 110-degree bend at the elbow. So if she had a ball in the elbow, it would fall out. This would be a super drill for Gail. She hits the ball well, but she could be hitting it much, much harder. Okay, let's take a look at Margarita. Same problem. She comes straight up. She does not have the racket going behind her body. Now the palm goes up. Now she's going to get into that pushing motion. And again, you see there's a very slight bend in the elbow, so she doesn't have much forearm to snap into the ball. And Luis. Let's see if he can go limp on that forearm. Remember, we're talking about the fourth and fifth links. The upper arm and the forearm. There goes the racket up. I thought he had it. Son of a gun. The racket's pointed to the sky, and his arm is only bent about 110 degrees. He's going to end up with a push, not a pronated forearm. Now watch my pal Hamza from Pakistan, Karachi. He had a very stiff arm, and I'd never seen a young child have such a stiff arm. Now watch. That's painful because he can't get power. Remember, if there were a ball in his elbow right now, it would already have fallen out behind his body. So we had to get him to bend his elbow, the fourth and fifth link. What I'm trying to do is get him to relax it here, scratch a friend's back. He had a great answer for his stiff arm.
It came from when I was playing cricket, because I've been playing cricket for some time now. When we bowl, we have to get the arm straight.
But like all good athletes, my pal Hamza learned to bend his elbow. Not as much as he would have liked, but boy, that's a major gain right there. I take my hat off to him. Not such an easy maneuver when you've been spending your life playing cricket with a stiff arm. Well, we keep talking about looking in the mirror, and here Angie looks in the mirror. That's the movement you want. You simply wiggle your hand, you bring the racket back with the palm down, and now you could actually look in the mirror. And we wish people would do this with their racket, because when you do this with your racket, this is the sensation that you get. Imagine your racket has a mirror in it and look in that side of the racket. Well, we keep talking about forearm pronation. What is it? Actually, it's the secret to a big-time serve. When you make a 360-degree swing, the racket ends up on its edge like this, and you'll be holding the continental grip. That's halfway between a forehand and a backhand grip. And when you're in this position, you will be looking at the palm, but the palm has its edge towards the ball. It'll have to turn into the ball, and that's pronation. Well, at 8,000 frames per second, you're going to see pronation. You're going to see the forearm twist in a very strange manner. We literally have great players tell us the forearm does not do this. It's in the wrist. You snap the wrist. But remember, you don't have a separate set of wrist muscles. It's the forearm twisting. Notice the racket is on its edge. Now the forearm is beginning to turn, and you'll see the force throws the racket away from the body. Now watch the racket. It's turning in the opposite direction. That is pronation. Can you see why the racket continues way out to the opposite side? So many people say, come down across your body on the follow-through. But the truth is, the follow-through goes in the opposite direction, way down. Then at the very bottom, you relax the arm and let it cross the body. But you have to go to the right. Notice the racket and arm has turned 180 degrees. I find a great drill is to simply look at your palm and then go with the edge of your palm towards the outstretched hand, and at the last moment, turn your palm into the other palm. And that's what pronation is. And it's that force where you're twisting and then suddenly contacting the ball which gives you the great speed on your serve. And I think this drill is the kind of drill that you can practice. You can get the brain to program this movement. It's so different than most people think that it is. So it does take practice.
What we're going to do is we're going to put our left hand out, right arm here, looking at the palm and going out. So on 1, 2, 3, you ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Again, 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Coach Young has a great drill where you put your palm down, make the elbow go forward, hit a ball into the fence. What's so valuable about this drill is the ball's not going very far. You can take a lot of time to look at the body links and see if they're doing the right thing. You also see that you have a lot of time throwing a very low toss if the arms come up together. It's so difficult for some people to understand pronation. But if you'll get into these simple little drills where you have no pressure, I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. And then again, the brain will reprogram this movement. Another super drill I find is to actually serve with your hand. And if you pronate properly, you will see that your hand has plenty of power. You literally can hit the ball well without a racket. All the service forearm pronation is a thermometer snap. And notice when you snap a thermometer, it goes left to right in the same manner that the racket goes. Why do you do this? Because you can get the thermometer moving faster. Let's take a look at Roy as he hits. Now check and see if he does a thermometer snap up here. The racket should go to the right and turn inside out. It looks strange, doesn't it? But that's how it goes. A thermometer snap. Watch the pronation, inside out. People say, I don't do that. Of course you do that. But the problem is the movement is faster than the human eye can record. But if you'll do it slowly, practice with the thermometer, and then get the feeling with the racket, it's the same feeling. Well, your body links are important, but they can only do the right thing when the feet are in the proper position. Power comes from the ground up. So your feet have to become the stabilizers. When your feet are doing the right thing, the rest of the body can really spring into great action. Steve's back foot is in the blue circle, but as you can see, he's going to have to swing the back foot way around the front foot, and he's not going to be able to spring forward as quickly as he would like, so he may not get as far into the net. So that's a little bit of a dangerous position with that back foot. This position is a little better. Steve will be able to move the back foot straight in towards the net, and he'll be much further in towards the net for his first volley. Remember, it's how the body coils, not exactly how you put that back foot. We'll show you with no movement at all on the feet. Steve will plant the feet, face the net, but coil his body, and he will still hit the ball very hard with no footwork, simply using his feet as stabilizers. So the body coils, he uncoils, it's a very hard ball. Having a foot in contact with the ground is extremely important. In this case, the knees become the feet. The knees are the stabilizers. But look, Roy is able to turn. Look at that grunt, man. He is ready. 94 miles per hour on his knees. Now Reese Thomas hits. Again, 94 on the knees, but it's because the body is coiling. The knees become the feet. So if the stabilizers are there, feet or knees, you got power. Tremendous controversy on this one. Many people feel if you jump, you get more power. The question is, when you jump. If you jump before your racket has achieved maximum acceleration, you lose power. There are two kinds of jumping on the serve. One where you jump first and hit, and the other where you jump after you hit or as you're hitting the ball. Now the rule of thumb is that if your forearm has achieved maximum speed and you jump, you don't lose power. But if you jump before your forearm achieves maximum speed, you do lose power. And so these players are testing the theory. Here's Keith. First of all, he has to become a great trampoline artist. Hey, a little uncomfortable, but how many times do you serve from a trampoline? Pretty good speed, though, 55 miles an hour, but it only shows you how much you lose if your forearm has not achieved maximum speed and you jump. Now, Angie's having a little trouble here. This is not her all-time great drill. But she gets onto it. You don't want to horse around with Angie. Sooner or later, maybe, she gets it, and she won't let go. Nice shot, Angie. And Mitch, Mitch is having more trouble than Angie. But Mitch gets onto it, too. But again, the theory is, if you jump before your forearm achieves maximum speed, you lose power. If you're being pulled off the ground when you jump, that's a better force. So watch for it. Try a trampoline. If you want to test the theory, try serving on rollerblades. You'll see that the rollerblades have tremendous movement. So the racket swinging in one direction creates an opposite force at the feet. So it's an awful feeling when you try to serve with rollerblades. Mitch has been serving at 84 miles per hour, but now he can only generate about 66 miles per hour. So Mitch has really discovered the important role of the feet. When your feet are stable, then more power gets into the racket. But when your feet are unstable or you're off the ground too early, then the racket slows down. Look at that. Boy, the experts in stabilizers are the wheelchair athletes. They learn very early. Here Debbie's learning to serve, but she's also learning the role of the wheel on the serve. And most of the top players find that there's great movement on the chair. So what do they do about it? As they get better and better, when they throw the ball up in the air to serve, one of the first things you'll see is that the non-hitting hand will go for the wheel. And when the wheel is stable, the racket will travel faster. Well, we know that most people throw the ball straight out in front of them, but I don't think that's the best. I think you should throw the ball to the side and forward. Watch this baseball pitcher as he throws the ball. He coils his body. It's exactly what we want for a tennis player, but you don't have to lift your leg like this. All you have to do is turn your body back. Now he's got a lot of potential energy. He begins to uncoil. But look what happens to the arm. When you really uncoil your body, those three large muscle groups, it throws the arm way off to the right. The arm is not up over your head. When you throw the ball way up over your head, straight up, then you're prone to much more injury. But if you take a look at this, now we're going to try to keep you from serving up in this area. We want you to throw the ball off to the side. Then you'll be anatomically safer and more efficient. You'll have a lot more speed. You'll see with our stick figures how much the body coils. And I want you to pay a special attention to the role of the fourth link. That's the upper arm. You'll see that the elbow leads long before the ball is thrown, long before the forearm makes its pronated move. There comes the front foot down. It's getting ready to block so that the body can turn quickly. There goes the coil, just as you would do it on a serve. Now watch the elbow. Here it comes across the fourth link. See it lead? Now the ball takes off. We'll run it again for you, and then we'll freeze frame it in the position for the fourth link. There's the body coil. You could actually serve this way as long as one foot's in contact with the ground. Watch for the elbow. It's out forward. Boom. So to help Keith become aware of his body movements, the three links, we give him a baseball glove. He practices coiling and then turns. And he also is going to say a little message here.
I'll be with you in just a second.
Now, why do we have him say that? We have him turn to his friend and say, "Hi, I'll be with you in just a second." What this does is forces him to turn his body back. And then when he says, "I'll be with you in just a second," he uncoils his body. And that helps him know when to throw the ball. Good movement. Watch how much body coil there is from this top view. You have tons of body coil, but what's more important is to keep your head very still. And we got a man who specializes in that. Reese Thomas is an excellent player and coach, and he knows the value of having a still head. And he's invented a little mechanism that'll guarantee that.
We invented this device because what we found was people perform their best when they have what's known as the quiet upper body or the or nice head stabilization. when they're like that, they move quicker, they have more balance, they generate more force when they hit the ball. It's more fluid when they're playing. The problem that we ran into is that a lot of people consider that when they're hitting the ball, they must have good balance because that's the way I've always hit my shot. And what they're not aware of is that the true plumb line is what they're trying to create, a good head over feet balance. When they go to hit a tennis ball, say on a serve, and they're pulling their head down, they actually pull the racket right out away from the ball, and their body is telling them to go somewhere where they don't want to go. So what I developed was a system that could trigger either with a voice command or a beep, and this one's set up with a beep, that if you fall out of that plumb line at any time during play, it will remind you that you need to get back into that to get this good posture and all of a sudden and also be able to use the power in your body. This device very simply makes people aware of what their head's doing.
Well, let's take a look at Roy now. He's still wearing the mechanism, but look at his head. It doesn't disappear. It stays up on top. Good move. Well, if you buy off on the fact that you want to throw the ball more to the right and way out in front, you'll need some practice drills. Here's Angie and Keith. They're now going out to do a drill that you can do right on your garage. But in a tennis court, you put a ball in the fence. Hopefully the ball will stay in there. You could put a ribbon there if you like. The ball is now at the peak of your reach. Now remember, this is going to be your target. Hopefully your target will stay in the fence. Whoops. Well, Keith's got to do it again. But they get it in there finally. Now remember, you could tie a ball to the fence if you like. Angie gets under it, takes a step to the left and a step back.
There you go.
Now the ball will be way out in front of her and to her right. And now she will not have trouble impinging upon that shoulder. It'll be a pretty easy toss. When she turns, the racket will be traveling very fast on the right side of her body. I think this is a critical movement, and we're going to talk a lot about this. Her body is balanced. She hasn't had to arch her back. So again, she gets her spot. But look, if she hits straight up, boy, that shoulder is pinching. So what Coach Butch Young does is show you that if you don't hit there, you hit here. You're only about 2 inches lower, and the data is almost exactly the same according to Howard Brody, the great physicist, my mentor. So hit to the right, save your shoulder, and you still get good data. As you can see, both balls are hit 100 miles per hour. The one ball on the left was struck at 9 feet, the one on the right at 8 feet 10 inches. And the racket tilt is exactly the same, 6.5 degrees forward. And they both went in. Now, save your shoulder. Meet Mike Farrell.
Vic, the shoulder is an unconstrained joint. If improper mechanics are used, i.e. if the player throws or serves directly overhand, the tendon of the rotator cuff can be pinched between the humeral head and the acromion, or the shoulder blade, leading to degenerative changes, even tears. This can be painful for the player, and it can lead to early ending of his career.
Well, as you watch this baseball player throw the ball, again, the body coils, but watch carefully how the arm comes off to the right and forward. This is a much safer position. If you don't do it this way, here's what happens.
We take plain x-rays, we perform physical examinations, and ultimately obtain MRI studies which show us the soft tissues in great detail. Beyond that, diagnostic arthroscopy is sometimes required.
Well, you got the ball to the right of your body. Now, how far forward do you toss the ball? Well, Keith is seeing how far out he can throw the ball without being pulled off the ground. He cranked that last one up at 110. Let's look at it again. Now, if you watch his feet, they come off the ground a little bit early. He's slightly up before he hits. We find he could hit it even harder. So he's got to practice to the right, keep the foot down. So it's very important for Keith to know when to let that foot come off the ground and how far to throw it to the right. Now, if you'll take a look at this, he's way out in front. He's at about the 3-foot mark when he hits. But you see his feet are off the ground a little early. So again, even though he cranked that one up there pretty good at 110, he probably could hit it about 115. The racket's tilted just a little. So here comes the drill. Throw it to the right, but don't work too hard. Just work on a rhythm. There's the rhythm. Turn and hit. He's doing it so easily, and yet he's 92 miles an hour. 94. There's the rhythm. Turn and hit. Now Roy tries a little low on the toss. It's a good drill because you feel like you're hitting it sidearm. Then begin to raise it. And pretty soon you'll find out you're only 2 inches lower on the right than you are throwing the ball directly over your head. But when you throw it directly over your head, you pay an awful price. Angie having a little trouble with this one. But she catches it. A little long. Don't give up, Angie. As you've seen before, Angie never quits. Sooner or later, she lays it in there, and she loves it. What a player. Well, it's one thing to throw the ball to the right. Now you got to throw it way out in front. And the coaches and some of the players were quite surprised when they saw the view from the top. They were much later on the hit than they thought. This is Eric. Boy, he wanted another shot to get back in there. Later, he started throwing that baby way out in front. But it took this aerial view to convince him that he was throwing the ball behind him. You get another look at it. Now watch, you'll see the racket actually is laid back a little bit. He's having to lay his head back quite a bit too. If he threw the ball further in front, his head would not have to take that beating. But you see the racket laid back? Got to get it out there in front. Well, Greg says, hey, give me a shot at this. But Greg also had a tendency to throw the ball back a little bit over his head and a little bit late. And I think that you'll see on this super slow motion action that he is really hurting out there. He's bending his back, he's bending his head back. So watch for this. You'll see he's under a lot of strain right here when he's hitting the ball. Yet he can really crank it up. Greg threw that ball in there about 110, 111. But I would say that he's in deep trouble here. He's only about 3 days away from the hospital. But he came back later after looking at this video and said, wait a minute, I'm not going through that anymore. So even though he was hitting it at 110, hitting it hard, he was working way too hard. So he started throwing the ball much further out in front. So now we need some drills. How do you practice throwing the ball out in front? Well, here's our ball expert, Butch. He's got it down cold now. Whoops. He never makes the same mistake twice. This time he gets it in there, and Keith's got a target. Now, Keith is tilting that racket way too far over, but that is the distance out in front he wants to hit. But when he moves his body forward, his racket will only be tilted 6.5 degrees forward, 6.5 up to 7.5 in some cases. There's the drill, perfect toss, but look how far in front it is. That is major. So many people throw the ball back to them. You want to throw it way out in front, and you use a fence and throw the ball parallel to the fence. It's a wonderful drill. You can build yourself a model by putting balls in the fence. Now remember, you may want to tie the balls to the fence so they don't pop out on you again. But Roy says, not this time, baby. Roy gets a little model. He starts throwing his left arm. Notice how it comes back in a circular motion, just like a baseball glove. But also, if you notice here, that his left hand's going higher than that top ball that he's using in his model. Watch it carefully. The hand's going above. So Roy will reposition those balls and put that top ball where he needs to have it for his release point. And then he's developing a perfect toss. Nice motion. And notice his hand is very comfortable. The palm is not up. It's like he's holding a glass of water. Very easy. The key to a good serve is timing. And if you put a towel over your head and you can't see the ball, you'll practice on a 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, timing on the serve is everything. You may not want to try the towel trick, but it's wonderful because if you throw the ball right when you're serving, it's a 4 count. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you throw it right at the peak of your reach, you shouldn't even have to see the ball. You should be able to hit it blindfolded. So we're running a little test on Mitch to see what he can do. You wiggle your fingers in front to see if his eyes can see your hands. We don't want any cheating here. But Mitch gets a little disoriented here. He's not quite sure where he is. He's going to serve up into the deck any minute now. Butch straightens him around, gets him settled, ready to go. Let's see if he has the right rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4. Not bad. Look at that. This is the first time he tried it, too. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very good, Mitch. That's hard to beat. Keith says, I can do it. But he's having a little trouble. Keep an eye on Keith, folks. It doesn't matter how old you are. I love it. He's in trouble. There's a real purpose behind this drill. When you go 1, 2, 3, 4, you force the racket to continue accelerating. That's the key, Newton's second law. You want the racket to always continue accelerating. And if you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, you don't pause the racket, and you feel the pause if you do. Once you develop a powerful serve, you usually find yourself rushing to the net behind that great serve. Well, we get some letters, and people say, why don't you just take a running start? As long as you haven't landed over the line, just run, jump, serve. You'll be so far in when you do it. The problem is, it's against the rules. Let's talk about some logical ways to be effective. When you serve, you need a fast first step. Look at that short step. Keith landed just 3 or 4 inches inside the service line. That's not going to get him very far in. Now, Keith only got 7.5 feet in, but you'll see that Mitch is shorter and got the same amount going in. Keith had a couple of little extra steps before he started. It's so important to get way in there when you're going into the net. The further in you are, the easier the volley. And so you have to work on these movements. 6.5 feet, not enough. If you have a hitch on your swing, or if you pause, bring out 2 socks. It'll help you a ton. How about that old scratch your back business? Well, the truth is, when you serve properly, you never scratch your back. The forces just go out away from your body. Well, if you try an old pair of socks, put some balls in there, and then lasso, the same way you swing a racket on the serve, you'll see that the socks extend. They're way out there, so you never scratch your back. How about a little proof of this? Let's go from the bottom up. This is Roy serving. We'll walk you through it frame by frame, and you will see as the racket comes around his back that it goes away from his body. So many people try to scratch their back, then they stop the racket, violating Newton's second law, and try to go up. I guess they don't violate Newton's law. They prove Newton's accurate. Stop behind your back, scratch your back, and you hit a very slow serve. See how far it is away from the body? Let's take a look again. We reverse it. It's way out away from the body. So don't scratch your back. That's critical. Just continue to accelerate. Whatever you get, use it. Now watch my pal Lola. She's all set to hit, but she doesn't take the first movement, the one where you look into the mirror. She puts the racket back here first. So now she's going to have to stop and go forward. She does not have the power she wants. She's an elegant server from this point on. You'll see that the racket does the right thing. She has a great future. Now watch. She's short right now. She'll get her growth. Watch the racket pronate. She could step forward to get more power. She's trying to stay behind the line. She'll get rid of that later. Well, now look at this particular position. You see the racket has no movement, and she needs that movement, the initial movement where you bring the racket back as though you were looking in the mirror. This is the movement that Lola needs, and then she will have racket head speed at this point. That's important when you don't have a lot of muscle, so we're showing her how to make that first motion. She did it quite well. Lola catches on fast. A little feeling for the lasso, a full motion, bingo. Super stuff. Eat your heart out, Steffi Graf. He's going to be a player. It's really wonderful working with intelligent young kids because they catch on so quickly. Watch the pronation. Most people in their 40s say, I don't turn that racket inside out. Lola does it beautifully. Well, there's one thing about stopping and looking like the trophy when you serve. You lose all of your energy. Watch. You can check it out with socks. Just go back, pose like the trophy, and you'll see that your arm stops. The socks collapse. Now, at this point, you've lost all your power, so don't look like a trophy. Well, what we're looking for is efficiency. Now, this is one of the most dangerous serves in the game. You can do it, and when students come to me and say, I want to hit this big American twist serve behind my back so I get vertical rotation, make the ball jump up high, that requires you bending your back. And I ask my students, if you want this serve, please sign a release. I don't want to take responsibility for your back. The great player from China, Hu Na, started this way but then developed a toss to the right. So when you hit that ball off to the left side, there's a big gamble. But as you begin to move the hitting point to the right, the pressure is off of the shoulder, but you can still spin the ball. So many players say, wait a minute, you can't be to the right and still get anything but a slice. But you can. You can get 45-degree rotation, which is very good for bringing the ball down into the court. So if you hit over to the right like this, you get good spin, you get the ball into the court, you can hit it hard, and you save your shoulder. I always tell everybody, here's the feeling you want. You brush up a second racket as though it were a ball. Try to come up and over the top of the racket. And when you do that, you will get the feeling you want. But that's not what really happens. Watch it again, and you will see the feeling you want is to try to come over the top of your racket. But that's not what really happens. When you try to come up on the ball, the racket, remember, and the forearm pronate. And as a result, they go up like this, you get your spin, but the racket goes to the right. Now watch the force. It's going out to the right. So it's very important when you're hitting a topspin shot off to the right that you get the feeling you're coming over the racket. But if you start throwing that ball off to the left side, as Dr. Mike Farrell will show you, you are taking a great chance on an injury.
This is the shaft of the humerus, and this is the spine of the scapula, commonly called the shoulder blade. This is the common tendon of the rotator cuff, which is made up of the tendon of 4 muscles that insert onto the humerus, or the ball of the shoulder joint. When Vic forward flexes, he's okay here. Yeah, maybe you can do it, Vic. There you go. When Vic forward flexes, he demonstrates how the rotator cuff impingement occurs.
Do you know that's exactly what happens in a shoulder separation? Painful. You know, when you're practicing your swing, just look at it. You don't have to hit the ball. You can throw the ball up, but you have the right to just watch your swing throughout the entire path. I always loved the efficiency of the great Arthur Ashe. He hit one of the best slices in the history of the game. Now notice he doesn't have a big back arch there. He's just got a little bend, but the ball's off to the right side. It comes way over and it's outside his hand. Now I'm going to show you right here that he does not have that dangerous arm that's up in this position. His arm's going out this way. That's the way you want to go. Now notice it also saves his back because he doesn't have to arch over in that position. So Arthur could hit it. How hard could he hit it? This is the best slice we ever recorded. 102 miles an hour. It hit the side fence before it reached the baseline on a 78-foot court. Let's go to the top view. Arthur's racket is down, facing down with the palm. The ball's on the right side. Now you saw on the other angle that it didn't look like he had much back arch, but you can see from the top there's a substantial arch, even though it's far less than almost any other player. He's coming around the 4th length, the elbow, and he's getting ready to hit. Now watch from this point. Arthur's going to slice. The common theory, you go around the outside of the ball and then come down the left side. That's wrong. You actually pronate a little early. You hit the ball on the back right side, and the force carries the racket to the right. The same as a twist, the same as a flat serve. Down on the right. Now notice that the hand, the wrist, the forearm, the upper arm are all on a straight line. There is no deflection of the wrist from the impact point on. Can you see this clearly? Watch. It's straight as an arrow. The hand is simply part of the pronation process. All right, let's take a final look at Arthur from the backside. This is a great slice serve. Racket faces down. The ball's on the right side. Now notice when it's on the right side, you will not see much impingement on the shoulder. I've never known Arthur to have shoulder problems, and he hit that ball a ton when he served. He's unwinding. The racket's going away from his body. Now the racket pronates. It goes inside out, and notice it goes to the right on a slice, then to the left. So it's back to the toss. The toss is quite simple. Remember, you're only going to throw it 17 to 20 inches out of your outstretched hand. But let's take a look at the 3 tosses. You have most people serving in this manner, straight out. Now this is the one that will give you some problems on the shoulder. Now if you hold the palm up, you're limited into how much body rotation, because if you make a lot of rotation, this is difficult to throw. Now, if you hold the ball as though you're holding a glass of water in this manner, McEnroe, Vijay Amritraj did it this way, they would turn a little bit more. Now, if you put the palm down, a la Jack Kramer, he had the palm down and he could coil more. It's a little bit more comfortable to coil this way. You can hold it like a glass of water and still coil, but it's a little harder to throw the ball out. The key is to get body rotation, so you want to make sure the body rotates. Now, whichever is easier for you, but try to make the body rotate. Here's one of our problems. People have a tendency to do this. Now we teach them to coil the body, but now they still have this. And here's what you get. Well, you saw that if you throw a low toss, peak of your reach, which is only 17 to 20 inches out of your outstretched hand, that means that it doesn't matter what age you are, how tall you are. Imagine a 5-year-old child is going to learn to throw the ball this high. And if they become 7 feet tall, they're still only going to throw it this high, because all rackets have a tendency to have the same length. And so you don't have a telescopic racket. So whatever you're doing when you're 5 years of age, that toss will be the same one you'll use when you're 70 years old. You know, David Wheaton is one of America's best, and he knows that he's got to continue to experiment with his serve until he finds the perfect one, the one that's most efficient, which will allow him to play for a long time and still hit the ball at amazing speeds. Sometimes he's clocked at 115, 118. He can really drill it. But here he's sitting above his head in the research project, and then he goes back. His mother, his first coach, and his brother, his current coach, will check him out. Now they'll have him throw the ball off to the right side and see what kind of power he generates and how his arm feels. And then David will decide somewhere during the year what serve he'll throw in the big Grand Slams the next year. Smart man. He's got a future. Well, we've tried to show you nearly every kind of server possible. We hope that we've covered your particular problem. But now the key thing is to go back and review the most important points. 1, coil your body. That's where the power comes from, those 3 large muscle groups. Avoid the trophy toss. Remember, if the hand goes up too early on the front, then the racket has too far to travel. So again, don't look like the trophy. Throw only to the peak of your reach. And when you throw to the peak of your reach, the ball sits in the window so much longer. It doesn't seem right, but that's the way gravity works. A low toss gives you more time, not less time. Remember, you want to toss over to the right if you're a right-hander and to the left if you're a left-hander. That will free the shoulder, no impingement. Remember to keep your palm down when you begin the swing, because that will allow you to get 360 degrees. And if you'll use the mirror trick, it'll get you on your way. Get the elbow forward before striking the ball, and once the elbow's forward, remember the thermometer snap. The follow-through is away from your body. Look at that. It's way off to the right, and it turns inside out. If you jump too early, you lose power. The racket stops accelerating. Keep your head very still on all shots. And finally, use the continental grip. If you're right-handed, slide your palm over 1 bevel to the left from your forehand. If you're left-handed, slide your palm 1 bevel to the right. Not a backhand, halfway between the forehand and backhand grip. Now, if you have a continental grip, the edge of the racket is heading right up towards the ball. But remember, the speed comes from this pronation, and as you begin to turn the forearm into the ball, the racket at the point of impact will be squarely on the back side of the ball. And that's what you want for the greatest ball depression and the greatest speed. And you can also hit spin serves with the continental grip. But if you change back to the forehand grip and then you pronate the forearm, your racket will be on the left side of the ball, and all of the balls will go over to the right. You don't want that. You want the ball to be going out towards the intended target. But the real surprise comes when people hold a continental grip, but they don't pronate the forearm. And when you do that, you hit the right side of the ball, and all of the balls go to the left. So use a continental grip, pronate the forearm, and you're dead on with that ball. Can you imagine that in 1993, Roscoe Tanner, at the age 41, hit one of the hardest serves in the game, but the most efficient server I've ever seen in my life. 20-some years at the top of the heap, never reporting shoulder problems, never reporting elbow problems, never reporting back problems, the great Richard Pancho Gonzalez. Well, that's it, folks. If you follow all these tips, we think you're ready to pack your bags for Wimbledon. A quick look at two other recent releases. Mental Tennis. We cover areas which help you think clear and have more fun. Issues like self-esteem.
I don't count myself as good as I am, so when I make shots, even if I make them or I miss them, I second guess myself, and I don't think, a lot of times I don't think that I am good enough to be playing who I'm playing.
How to deal with verbal abuse.
This type of situation before where the kid was very abusive. His language was extremely abusive. He was calling Matt names and saying, some, pretty dirty words for a 14-year-old kid on a tennis court. And I was sitting there visiting with the mother, and I was just appalled that she was letting, this go on.
Anger.
The locker room, cracked all his rackets against the locker.
And we cover how to plan practice sessions, some key findings in motor learning research, how to deal with nervousness before and during matches, and how to cope with cheaters.
There's certain people that that are not going to make good line calls. And that's always something that kind of eats away a little bit at you, because you know that you thought that ball was in and yet he called it out. So that's an attitude that I have a little difficult getting over sometimes when I know I'm playing that type of a person.